Hi, guys. Welcome to another segment of Esteemable Acts Wednesdays with me, Francine. So, the other day I was in conversation with someone who was sharing how much she absolutely hated her mother. And I have to tell you, as I listened to the reasoning of why she hated her mom, it just became more and more painful. One of the reasons was because that was me 40 years ago. And I listened to her, and it was like, oh my God, it took me back to that time in my life, but I just hated my mother. And you know what? If it had not been for my mentor, Louise Robertson, and the kind of program that she actually helped me develop over the years, who knows where I'd be today? Really, who knows? And well, let me just say this. I'm sure I am not unlike a lot of teenage girls. I had this issue with my mom, women, girls and their moms. That's not so uncommon. But for me, I'll tell you, some of the reasons that I hated her wasn't that my mother was a horrible mother. I didn't like my mom because she had the nerve to not let me do whatever I wanted to do. Go figure. I'm in her house, a teenage girl eating her food under her roof. I wasn't paying a penny, but yet I wanted her to let me do anything I wanted to do, and she just wasn't having it. It's an interesting thing how that changed for me. And I'll just share with you. It actually took Louise, my mentor, to really help me start to see my mom as a human being. Number one, I was always expecting my mother to be a perfect mother. I wanted her to be perfect. She couldn't do anything wrong. But at the same time, I wanted her to understand that, well, I'm only human. If I made a mistake, you should just look past it. But God forbid she do anything that I didn't like, I was on her right away. The other thing is, I never saw my mother as a human being. I always just saw her as my mother. And I think it was when I started to actually see her as a human that things started to shift. I started to realize that, my mom was a single mother. She raised two little kids, and my mother was poor. She struggled to get herself through school. She did all kinds of things to take care of these two little kids. She could have given both of us up. She definitely could have given me up because I was such a piece of work. But you know what? She never did. She just stuck with me. She held on tight. And the best I could do was give her grief. Well, I'm so grateful that I had a mentor like Louise who helped me start to see my mom as a human being. The other thing that Louise helped me realize is that as long as I hated my mother, I was never going to have a healthy relationship with anybody, no man nor a woman, because there was always going to be my mom in between me and whomever else there was. Me, my mother, and the other person. Because I'd always be hearing her chirping in my ear. So, I am just grateful that I had someone like Louise who was able to penetrate this mass between my ears, this piece of dead cell, just thinking that I had it all together, thinking I knew everything, didn't want to take any suggestions. But, I started to take suggestions from Louise. And thank God. When my mom died last year, while there were still some things I wish I would have done differently over the years, for the most part, I was so grateful that I had really become a pretty good daughter. Again, there's some things that I wish I would have done a little bit differently, especially over the last few years. Maybe argued less, maybe tried to stand my ground a little bit less. But for the most part, I had really become a better daughter. And that I owe to this woman, Louise Robertson, and the kind of program she instilled in me. So I think that's what I'd like you to think about this week. Maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your dad that you have an issue with. Maybe you have really a good reason for disliking them. So don't misunderstand me. I think there is clearly some reasons why people might not want to be involved or may not want to, have a relationship with a parent. Honestly, I think there are definitely some reasons. But it's for each of us to decide for ourselves. Is that reason a really valid reason, or maybe is it time to bury the hatchet? Anyway, what Louise also helped me realize is that I did it for me more than I did it for my mom. When I'm hating somebody so much, I'm the one that suffers because there's this crust around my heart, this barrier that prevents me from stepping outside and actually loving, because there's this thing around my heart that won't let me. And as long as I hated my mom, well, I couldn't even really love myself in the way that I've eventually come to love myself. So think about it this week. What kind of relationship do you have with a parent? Or is there a relationship? Is it time to bury the hatchet? Maybe. And if so, what action might you consider taking? And what better time to think about that as we enter into the new year? So I'm Francine. This is Esteemable Acts Wednesday with me. Have a Merry Christmas, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. Bye-bye for now.